Hello, everybody, and welcome to the week ahead forecast beginning September the 14th. I am Louise Eddington, the Cosmic Owl, Wisdom Weaver, and Cyberpunk Priestess, Witch of the Stars, or Witch Priestess of the Stars. Anyway, that's what Steve Judd called me. I'm trying to step more into that because I have some work to do with astrology. But anyway, let's dive in. But first, regarding how my work is shifting and changing in these mutable times. On Substack, where this will be presented as both a podcast and a written version, I have stopped doing my daily posts. But these videos are going to be broken down into a day by day forecast on Substack that will go out once a week. So you get less emails if you're on my Substack for free, but you can go back, or you can just keep it open as a window to go back and read through day by day for the guidance for the week. So if you, I had a couple of people comment that they kind of missed the daily pep talk, if you like, but I just cannot keep doing it all. So thank you for understanding. I'm really kind of in the middle of my business is kind of exploding. I've got all these opportunities. I have to have some space to do them. And I'm recording this quite early because I am actually going away for a few days to an astrology conference in gorgeous Sedona, Arizona, with the Red Rocks. And so I'm going to do an amazing workshop with Demetra George on some of the dark goddess asteroids, and I can't wait. So you will get the benefit of what I learn from all these things as I open space up to expand the way I work. Anyway, let's go on to the forecast. So I pulled cards for the week, and as usual, we will look at the full card interpretation at the end. But I give you a glimpse so that you will stay to the end because they are worth it this week. The Sun, amazing card, and the Star, and the Four of Blades. Don't worry, we'll talk about that. A lot of Blades cards are a bit... But anyway, and I also pulled one from the Witch Oracle deck, the Selkie. So we'll give the interpretation at the end of this, but I think they're really indicative of the energy of the week, of how you can work with it to bring the change into your life and expand your consciousness fully. Okay, so let's dive in to the week. Now, I've done a slightly different approach this week with my chart wheels, so I will hope it works. We'll see. Try these things, and if they don't, then they don't. Then we adjust. Okay. So September the 14th, Sunday, September the 14th. This is the energy of this day. As you can see, we start the week with Saturn back at 29 degrees Pisces. The Sun is at 21 degrees Virgo. We've just had a Mercury cazimi that we looked at last week. Things are starting to become clear. In the Muggle world, the Epstein estate sent a load of stuff to the Oversight Committee in Congress, and things were starting to come to light from that. Also, it's starting to become clearer in the world about shifting alliances, which is very Gemini, where we have the Moon and Uranus. Uranus just stationed retrograde. Russia just said that this drone strayed into Poland. My friend who lives in Ukraine said around 8 drones actually landed. NATO managed to kind of destroy most of the drones, but things are definitely kind of changing and heating up. I have some theories about these alliances, but I won't go into those just for the weekend forecast because this is a guide for you. Okay. And we are also, we start the week at the turning point between eclipses, literally. We had the full moon lunar eclipse on the 7th, and we have a new moon eclipse, solar eclipse, on the 21st. Now, I want you to look at the patterns, and I will look at the major aspects as well. So here we have still this wonderful mini grand trine happening with Neptune, Pluto and Uranus, which is ongoing. We also have Pluto making this sextile to Vesta, which has just moved into Sagittarius, and I cannot work without these asteroids anymore. We also have Haumea at 1 degree of Scorpio, and Pluto and Haumea just squared off again. Literally yesterday, I'm recording this on, what day are we? The 10th. They squared off on September the 9th, and that they have 5 more squares between now and 2028. 5 of 13. So that was the 8th square. Okay. And so, you know, all these big change makers are really speaking to each other. So you can see all this 1, 0. But Vesta is one of the faster moving planets, or asteroids, whatever you want to call it, planetary bodies, before anybody gets anal. And so she, to my mind, is activating these bigger energies, as do all the other planets as they move into a sign, an aspect, all these slower, big change-making energies. So we start the week literally with the moon in Gemini squaring the lunar nodes. And if you've been watching before, the nodes stay at the same position right through eclipse season. So that is the turning point between the eclipses. It's a turning point. The moon is moving towards the south node. That means it's moving towards the drain, towards circling the drain, towards releasing. We also had a lunar eclipse, and now we have as well the last quarter moon on this first day. And this all happens quite early on the 14th. And the last quarter moon is always a releasing point. Dane Rudyard called it the crisis crossroads in consciousness. What needs to go? What needs to keep being purged? Remember, we had a big purging kind of message from last week. Keep purging old ideas, keep purging old, literally mundane things, and really get down to the nuts and bolts. Okay. So I just want to read you quickly the symbols for this last quarter moon. So we go to Gemini 22 because the last quarter moon is at 21 degrees Gemini and 21 degrees Virgo. Square my sun. Oh, joy. So I'm feeling this really strongly. And the symbol for it is either a barn dance or dancing couples in a harvest festival. This symbol represents the theme of changing partners, changing perspectives. It can also represent kind of a lively social event where everyone comes together, but it's more that kind of everybody coming together and that kind of people dancing around each other, to my mind. It kind of highlights the idea of temporarily stepping into another's shoes to gain insight. And I was literally listening to a podcast this morning. I tend to let my YouTube just roll on. And this podcast came up with this woman who went on dating sites with very ultra white nationalist, right-wing people, just to see what they were. And anyway, I haven't finished it, but that's stepping into each other's shoes to just gain new insight, not to change. But it's also can be about social interaction, but also embracing the natural rhythms of life. And it's about those perspectives, gaining more perspective and shifting perspectives, but also seeing clearly, letting go of some old beliefs and ideas. You're like, wow, I never realized that was going on, kind of thing. But remember, the moon is moving towards a new moon. So it's a real what comes to light will be shifted. So then the Chandra symbol for the last quarter moon on September the 14th is a nude man with a tail. Isn't that one interesting? Let's say a nude human with a tail. And this is, or is it? Nope, sorry. Ignore my thing. It's actually the outer casing of the Great Pyramid being removed. Oh, even better. Wow. Sorry, I was reading 21, not 22. And this symbol suggests, again, a desire to reveal deeper truths by stripping away superficial layers, akin to discovering the hidden inner self by looking beyond surface appearances and traditions to find truth. And Virgo really likes to kind of investigate and get to the filing. But remember, this is working on all levels within you and out there in the world. So powerful start to the week, September the 14th. Let me see what else we have. So after this, the moon will then come on and square Mercury, and that will be a continuation of these truths being revealed in a big way. The moon over here will also sextile Venus, so it is revealing something about our core heart values, but also about women and leadership. Okay. And then also at the same time, because all these things seem to be working together at the moment, the moon will trine Mars in Libra, in Venus sign. We're really learning a lot about this network of hierarchical males, mostly white, all that kind of stuff. But also we're learning about where that culture may be sitting within you and those kind of hierarchical beliefs, and how, we have been in this world of, I'm beginning to hate the word patriarchy because everybody goes, oh, it's all men. No, it's not. It's this, might is right, me first, that, I have control over you. It's that power over paradigm, to quote some other astrologers, and I like that example. The moon will also sextile Eris, the table turner, and Chiron in Aries as Mars comes up to oppose them. So, this is real kind of shaking and stirring and things coming to light and table turning and saying, no, this is not right. More and more people are beginning to see the light, again, within themselves and without. And then the last lunar aspect on September the 14th is a square to Saturn in Pisces, at the anaretic last degree. Actually, it's at 2859, but close enough. This is again shedding, letting go of self-limiting beliefs, things becoming clear. You can't make the astrology up sometimes because we see it in the world. Then at 8:30 p.m, the moon will shift into Cancer for a couple of days and will square Neptune. So it's kind of interesting now. Every time a planetary body shifts signs, we've got Neptune finishing up its journey in Aries for now, and Saturn already, because Neptune will come back into Aries later, but Saturn is already back in Pisces. Saturn led the way back into Pisces. I think that's to gain this clarity. And then Neptune will move back into Pisces to help us to really tune into the interconnectedness of everything. Okay. And the clouds are definitely clearing. And the moon, last aspect, will, in Cancer now, will trine Haumea over here. And we'll make a quincunx to Pluto. So there's kind of a bit of a loose yod there with when the moon comes up and quincunxes Pluto to the moon in Cancer in its own sign. What makes you feel secure? What makes you feel protected? How are you going to step up? and shore up your basis of security, both personally and health, and then ripple out to um, others. Oh, so on to September the 15th. So stop the share. This, I kind of like this actually, instead of having to move the chart around. So you can tune into one sheet and I can start by pointing the patterns out. So let's keep doing this. Let me know what you think. So September the 15th, Monday, September the 15th. We have Mars over here, and I mentioned this already, but Mars is going to come up and oppose these energies over here, while still in an aspect of opportunity, a sextile to Venus. Mars and Venus are really kind of in this dance here. The Mars and Venus dance is always very interesting because it's about our relationships with each other, masculine, feminine, within and without, but also about how we are learning to come together in that yin yang kind of energy. And Mars is in Venus sign, of course, and Venus is in the sign of the sun. I would say Venus is in a stronger position right now to push, to come from the heart, to lean into your core values, to really become clear what light you want to shed on the world. But opposing these two, this dance is like the table turner and Chiron shining the light on this hierarchical power over paradigm wound that we are seeing more and more, and that we are realizing has to go, because that's not how the world works. And I still do believe we are going to change it. So moving on through the day, I'm not going to talk about the individual Venus-Mars aspects because I already mentioned them. The only other aspects is that the moon will come up and will conjunct asteroid Hygeia, holistic health. This is about you looking at preventative holistic health within yourself, but also and doing a lot of self-care, which will help you navigate these challenging times, right? And then the moon will oppose Pholus, that cause and effect that we're seeing again. We're seeing like how the, little things that happened quite some time ago are rippling out and causing long-lasting effects. And we must look at our own part in this in so many ways, in our individual lives and beyond. Okay, remember, we're taking the outer casing of the pyramid, to quote that Chandra symbol. I love that because we are revealing some ancient patterns here. Okay, last aspect on September the 15th is Mercury, still under the beams of the sun, by the way. So being purified, our perspectives, our thought processes, what we thought was meaningful is changing, and we are moving into a new paradigm. Will sextile Juno. I interviewed lovely Leanne McCafferty on my podcast. You can look at that, the video before this. But Juno, she related Juno a lot to social activism, or to activism, whatever you want to call it. And here we have Mercury being purified and sextiling Juno in Scorpio, which is power games, manipulation, often kind of sexual manipulation, Epstein. What's being revealed is very telling, but it's also very telling about how we have maybe upheld that, how we have said, well, this always happens to, or girls need to change this, or, all these patterns that we have in our heads. More and more we need to. I also think it's about developing and creating a new strategy for dealing with it, for how we are going to move beyond this power over, strategize and advocate and be what was that word I said? Activism for women and children's rights. And I'm going to say all that is other, that is not in the power over paradigm. September the 16th, let's move on to that one. So, September the 16th. So in the patterns, you can still see we have this kind of envelope pattern here. But on September the 16th, I don't think it was there on, well, it was maybe forming on the 15th. I've actually deleted that sheet, but we have this finger of fate forming, pointing right at Chiron and Eris over there. This finger of fate, Yod, or destiny, is from the Sun and Mercury. That aspect to Juno that I talked about is saying we have to take action to really shake these tables and to heal this wound. And we are each doing that in our own lives and in the greater world. The power over paradigm, I've said it many times, is clinging on to its fingernails, by its fingernails, right, to that power. And it's getting more extreme as it's being challenged. But this was involved in this eclipse, and we are done with it. We are saying, no, we want to wash this away. We want to shake tables. We want to heal this wound. More and more people are waking up to what is our real destiny, of saying we all have to step into our own agency in our own lives and play our part out in the world to be the change we want to see in the world. Agency is a great word for Aries. Rather than saying me first, we have to step into our own agency first, kind of embody that really straightforward power, knowing who you are, and then taking action. And of course, all this is connected to everything else. So we have this lovely Yod configuration, but also at the same time, or finger of destiny is a Yod. We also have Venus squaring off to Juno, as she is still in a semi-sextile here to Mercury, and still really in orb of her aspect to Mars. They're just all speaking to each other. This is all really pointing over here about this agency from what we need to let go of, what we need to release, and what we are stepping into. One other aspect is that Neptune over here makes its exact trine to Vesta. I mentioned that. So this is a lot related to what we're focused on and committed to and devoted to. And Vesta is in Sagittarius, which is visionary, forward thinking. Natural, it's truth as well. Truth, true freedom, all that kind of thing. And this is saying we are going to focus on what we are going to create and move towards. And that, to my mind, with Neptune in Aries, this is realizing that we are all interconnected, and how can we all work together to create this world? We always have free will, how we respond to these energies. So I'm not going to go through all the other Venus aspects because, as I pointed out, they're all working together. But the moon in Cancer, as I said, on September the 16th, the moon will make an unbroken flow trine aspect to Nessus, Centaur Nessus, revealer of abuses of power. Aren't we seeing that more and more globally and in our own lives, and how we've perhaps abused our own power over ourselves and with others? You know, layers. But this is a big one because the moon will also conjunct Jupiter. And so this is expanding our consciousness. We are seeing this more in Pisces and water signs. This is like washing away the clouds of unknowing to reveal some knowing, okay? In so many ways, it's powerful. And of course, then the moon will also activate the nodes right before Nessus. So Right, let me turn the page, finish the 16th. After the moon makes that, the moon will come up and will square Eris and Chiron. Squares are always kind of pushing for change. Remember, we're in that purging, releasing kind of day way, or seeing kind of what we need to purge. So the moon will come up and square Mars, square Eris, and square Chiron. This is really pushing us to do something, to initiate the change in whatever way that means for you. I will mention that Black Moon Lilith is there as well. There are a lot of themes going on about standing up for these women, but that means standing up for all people who've been abused by the power over paradigm, right? Okay. But each in our own way. I'm not trying to say you have to do it all. Okay, so, and then the last aspect on September the 16th is that the moon will finish its journey in Cancer with an unbroken flow aspect to Saturn. Again, reeling your own inner beliefs about the way the world works, washing that away, but then seeing more about the outer energy of the world too. Okay, on to the 17th. So September the 17th, on to Wednesday. So there's not quite as many major aspects, but I'm going into a lot of detail because we're in the middle of the eclipses, and this is the last week before the new moon eclipse. Okay, so on September the 17th, which is Wednesday, the moon almost immediately moves into the sign of Leo, where it will spend a couple of days. And then the moon will trine Neptune and will start to actually form, if you can see it, this fire grand trine to Vesta, which has just moved into Sagittarius. This is fire. This is creative. This is passionate. This is kind of like, okay, I've been purging old thoughts, old beliefs. I've been starting to see the light. I've been starting to get very clear now. What do I get to focus on? And what do I want to create? This is a really good day to start thinking about what your intentions are for this new moon eclipse that's coming up, which is so powerful. Fire grand trine, passion, passion, passion. It's like all at the very beginning degrees of the signs, of course, because they're still. But at the same time, as the moon makes that fire grand trine, it's also, oh yeah, there it is. So we have this fire grand trine here, but it's making a kite pattern. The string of the bow, as or the string of the kite, rather, as Kathy Beale loves to call it, great expression, so thanks, Kathy, for that one, is pointing at Uranus and Sedna. This is our spiritual destiny, Sedna, to make radical change, revolution in your own life and out in the world. Or it's showing us that radical change is here and it's time to step into this energy in such a lot of ways. Radical changes are needed and are coming. This is another move towards it, okay? All right. And of course, the moon will then square off to Haumea and Black Moon Lilith. A lot of it is to do with all this in the world about the power over paradigm. What more can I say about that, really? It's everywhere. We see it. We see it with Putin in Russia wanting to have power over other countries and recreate the empire or the Soviet Union or whichever you want. I think he sees himself as Peter the Great. We see it with Netanyahu, who's wanting to erase Gaza, basically. And then we see it with, people here in the USA, but we see it in other countries in the world. And this is them really trying to grasp this power. We see it with the tech oligarchs as well, trying to grasp this power and hold on to it. And it's beyond just hoarding the money. It's all about power and control. And we're seeing it more and more. And I'm not saying they have a big cabal. I do not think there's one cabal, but they all kind of help each other where it suits them, shall we say, I believe. And Applebaum did a book called Autocracy, talking about that. And they don't sit down round a round table. They're all out for the same thing, but they're all going to, help each other where it suits them, as I mentioned. Z and G and China, all those people. I think their time's over though. And so then on the 17th as well, Pluto will be squared by Black Moon Lilith again. That's kind of keep going backwards and forwards. All of this is revealing the shit. Okay. The shit of this power over paradigm. And what are you going to do to transform it? But remember, the power over paradigm energy is probably sitting in you somewhere in some way. And, all we can do as we heal from the inside out in this world is look at where it sits in us and become aware and release that, so that we can work more efficiently and strategically to change the world and create the world we want to see. Oh, I'm not going to go through every aspect because there's so many. Mercury, though. Mercury has moved all the way on now, is heading out of Virgo, because remember last week I said Mercury was only in Virgo for 16 days in its own sign. So this is change coming fast as Mercury is purified under the beams of the sun, saying, let that go, change. Now Mercury opposes Saturn exactly, seeing clearly what you need to release, but also seeing clearly what we'd like to be released out in the world. And then the Leo moon moves on a little bit and starts to oppose. Well, it started by opposing Pluto, of course, revealing the detritus. And then the moon opposes Pallas Athena. Where are you not being strategic? Where are you not collaborating with people in in Aquarius, that's the sign of community, to be more strategic. I don't go marching anymore, in the USA. I don't like what's happening, but I don't think marchers are really very strategic. I'm not saying don't march. If that works for you, for me, I'm thinking we need to be more strategic. And I'm not talking about just the Dems, although I work within the Dems because I think that has more potential to change at this point. And anyway, and I think it maybe is more strategic to change from the inside out, as I've said, and the bottom up. But also, I kind of feel I'm seeing it more out there in the political world, at least in the USA, that some of the Dems, not all, because when we lump them in one party, there's the old school, the power over paradigm, and then these other people rising up and speaking out. I think they're being more strategic. And yet some people, I saw a friend of mine, and God love her, she is, she's a friend and she's hurting, but she's going, I want them to do this, and why aren't they doing this? And I'm going, maybe they're being more strategic this time. Just saying. Like having Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking at the Epstein survivors press conference rather than having all the Democrats speaking. Isn't that more strategic to get some of the Republicans maybe to vote to have everything released? I think so. But anyway, that's just one example. Again, it's going to show up in your life differently. September the 18th, Thursday. Let's get that one up. What a week. And what a time we live in, to be honest. I'm just moving everything along and making this bigger. As you can see, September the 18th, we still have this finger of fate and destiny, because now the sun has come up and joined, and the sun is coming to aspect Juno, still pointing at Chiron and Eris. I think, everything that's happening right now is shaking everything up in so many ways. We also have the formation just of a mystic rectangle, which will form when Mercury moves into the sign of Libra. And we still have that ongoing pattern between all the slow moving planets. But let's move on to the 18th. The moon is in Leo. The moon makes an unbroken flow aspect to Ceres. What feeds you, what nurtures you, what nourishes you. This is fire again, and Ceres is retrograde, saying, come on, what really, really feeds you and nurtures you, and what is your heart's desire to create in this world? Okay. And then Mercury at 6:05 a.m. on the 18th Eastern moves into the sign of Libra. And I'll probably do a whole different video for Mercury in Libra, because I think it's important at the moment. But Mercury will move into Libra, still officially under beams of the sun, but a whole different vibe. This is Mercury in Libra, the sign of justice, the sign of the scales, the sign of relationship with each other, the sign of partnership. And, Mercury, from what is emerging from these eclipses and all this energy, is going to start saying, okay, how can I speak out for justice? How can I speak truth? Mercury is less hidden now. Mercury is being purified. People are going to start speaking up more and more, I think, for justice. And then the moon, the Leo moon, makes a few aspects, not least of which, and I am going to mention them. Moon will square off to Hecate, the crossroads goddess in that sign of Scorpio, where we're seeing so much emerging about the abuse and power of mainly women, young women, children, but it's reflected out globally, and it's making a T-square. So the moon will come up and square Hecate and make a T-square to Chariklo and asteroid Lilith, talk to the hand, who I always say are helping to write this new story of who we are individually and collectively. Okay, so as soon as Mercury moves into the sign of Libra, as I've said before, Mercury will oppose Neptune, and then will aspect Uranus and Sedna and Vesta and make this mystic rectangle. Mystic rectangles are kind of complex, but they are a real opportunity to start creating the change. And this is all in fire and air. This is kind of saying, what do we want to see? What do we want to burn off? What do we want to create? Fire and air is very creative. I think there's been a little too much emphasis in some astro worlds about the signs of fire and air being masculine. They are action, yes, they are yang energy, they are highly creative, but I think we have to look at the flow of all the planets and what everything is representing and where we are in our collective evolution. So Mercury, when it moves into Libra, will make a trine, unbroken flow to Uranus and Sedna, and we've seen that they are at the string of a kite as well, all those kind of things. In fact, we have all kinds of strings going on, pointing at all kinds of things. We have all kinds of kites going on, pointing at Neptune as well. Neptune in Aries is kind of revealing the power over and saying, let's step into this more spiritual warrior energy rather than Aries kind of power over fight energy. It's about letting go of that fight reaction. When you balance your nervous system, fight, when you feel like you're being attacked, that fight energy. We have fight, flight, freeze and fawn. Aries can be that real fight energy. Neptune is saying, let's dissolve that. Let's change. Let's do things differently. Uranus, change. Then, this Vesta there, focus, commitment, devotion. Mercury, in a way, is strategy in many ways as well. Plans. Do you see where it's all going overall, collectively? I could keep going on, but I'm not going to. We finished the day with a couple of minor lunar aspects and asteroid aspects. Hecate over here will try and Nessus. So, it's an ongoing, like, more revelations, more things coming out, and the moon will trine Eris. And, this is, and then we'll move on to the next day, but the moon will then trine Chiron and will sextile Mars, more fire and air. This is kind of like amongst the purging, we are getting to really kind of get creative and change things up in your own life, change how we do things in our own lives and out in the world. So, okay, stop that share. Let me know what you think to this. I like this because this is a natural break as well. So I can get my transit and say, hey, now we're on to the next day. And so now we are on to the next day. Hope I've picked the right one. I think it's actually this one. Screen sharing has failed. That's because, I know why it is. It's because I changed what I was sharing because I was going to share the 18th again. Let's share on to the 19th. 2 more days to go. And then we're in the depth of the eclipse, really. So as we enter into the eclipse energy, I really want you to look at the shape of this chart. We have this this air grand trine now. So it's an air grand trine from Mercury to Pluto to Uranus. Okay, the water grand trine has faded. We have multiple kites and strings of bows. So if we look at this, we have this kite here, and we have one string of the bow going directly to Eris. If we look at fire and air signs, we have another string of the bow going directly to Vesta. If we had, and I'm sure there's another asteroid here at 1 degree Leo or something like that, I'm sure we would have a Merkaba or St. David's, whatever you call it, anyway, I'll point it out. I've got an asteroid list up, and I'm going to point at what's there. We actually have an asteroid called Ischolupia. And I am just going to show you, this is how we kind of discover things. The asteroids are activators as well in many ways, as we tried to express that with some of our calls with Kathy and I, because asteroid Epstein is really visible, is really active in all the charts right now. So Aesculapia, Aesculapia, is asteroid 1027. This is named after the Roman god of medicine and healing. Okay, so in astrology, this is said to relate to themes of healing, recovery, making a miraculous comeback from difficult situations. And it can be Phoenix energy, and here we have it. It's actually at 1 Leo at the end of this week. And so this is said to help us understand where we can experience growth, healing, and transformation in our lives. So looking at this collectively, this would be at 1 Leo. This is another string of the bow, and this is making this Merkaba, and this is it's making the pattern, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 8-pointed, I think. I can't think. Anyway, it would make a sextile to, can I can't draw lines on here, so you're going to have to imagine it, but it would be opposing Pluto. Well, it's opposing Pluto. Then it's making sextiles to Uranus and to Mercury, higher mind and lower mind. It's also making trine to Neptune and a trine to Vesta. I think because this is, in a way, the empty leg of this chart for this week day at the end of the week, as we're going into an eclipse, this is kind of a point to look to. Where one Leo is in your chart, Leo is the sun. I'll get to the cards in a minute, but I pulled the sun before I even looked at this. This is stepping into your light, okay, to heal yourself, fill yourself with light and shine your light in the world. I really think this is kind of got this energy of resurrection, revival, and miraculous comeback. But the power over paradigm has helped made us believe, for centuries, that people have power over us, that, and we, it's just the way it is. I'm not going, we've allowed it and things like that. That's bullshit, really. It's just where we were in the collective consciousness. And now we're being given this major opportunity to transform that from the heart outwards. Leo is the heart. We've also got Venus in Leo, and Venus is the heart. And we've also got the moon in Leo at the start of the day, as all this combines, this fire and air. We have to look at this in the collective, thing, rather than going, well, last time Uranus was in Gemini, we did this. Yeah, we can look back at history, but all the other planets are just lining up in amazing patterns to help us to create something new. So that's just that energy of the day. We still have this finger of fate or destiny from the sun to Juno, pointing at Chiron now. This is saying Chiron in Aries is helping us heal and take back our agency, okay, as well. So it's just powerful, powerful, powerful. I can't really separate it out. This is just fire and air, creative, radical change, radical opportunity to change. I'm not even going to break down the aspects because, it's just nuts. But I do want to break down one aspect. So, Moon conjunct Venus at 8:21 a.m. on the 19th Eastern, 8:21 a.m. Eastern. We have an occultation of Venus, which is like an eclipse. And this occultation, I might just get my other chart up, my actual kind of software to show you, because the occultation is just kind of crazy, and I think it's worth spending some time on. The occultation of Venus is quite a rare one. We don't have occultations of Venus very often. We actually don't have occultations very often. Occult, OCCULT, occultation, okay, is what this, bear with me. Oh, goodness. Let me stop the share and change the share. Why is that doing? I know why it's doing it wrong, because I'm doing the Sun conjunct Venus. And no, we're not doing my Venus star point work yet. So, okay, let me stop the share and share the chart for this occultation. I think it's worth spending time on. So, occult, OCCOULT, if you can't understand my accent, means the word occult is hidden. Okay, and occultations of a planet mean the moon travels over the face of that planet. There's a site called in-dash the sky, in-the-sky.org. If you put in the sky, separate words, occultations, you will find the site. You can look up occultations, okay, if you want to. So I do want to add that asteroid that we talked about as well, just as a fixed point, because he's not on my software, I don't think. Oh, he might be. No, he's not. So I'm just going to put one Leo and just spend a little time here, because this is a big time. And I want you to work with this energy consciously and powerfully. And this week, if you have energy, anything around 1 degree of any sign, and I'm going to go, maybe 5 degrees either side, it gets stronger as it's closer. But also those other degrees we looked at, you're going to feel it a lot. And this is going to apply to most people. Okay, so there's that Star of David. That's what I was trying to think of. Merkaba. Okay, with all the things at beginning of fire and air. This is also activating this ongoing big change between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus that most astrologers are talking about, but it's activating all of these things. Vesta's, all right, she's moved to 2, but I like that she's at 222, which is the number of the divine feminine in many ways. But look at this occultation. Look at it. This is 2 days before a solar eclipse. It's in the middle of the eclipses. It's at the very last minute of Leo, which is the sign of royalty, or has been. You could say it's the sign very associated with the paradigm we're leaving, and which is the age of Pisces. But we've been in this long paradigm of power over, which is shadow Leo. All right, so it's the king, it's royalty, it's it's the emperor. But we have revealed that we have stepped into that kind of energy in a bad way. That's the end of an age thing. It's the end of empire kind of thing, if you like. So it's also this energy of the sovereignty, which I do believe in, but sovereignty by many has been used to say, well, I do whatever the screw I want, F I want. Anyway, so this is powerful. It's at the very last minute of Leo. It's like a third eclipse. I mentioned it before. I'm just going to kind of read you the Sabian symbol quickly, not the whole thing. For this is an unsealed letter. Oh my God. James Burgess says, secrets can only remain secret for a while. All that is known by one will be known by all. And he also says confidence arising from spiritual integrity. So everything that's being revealed is kind of speaking to this, and it's at the very last minute of a sign. So that's an ending before we move into something new. I find these signs so exciting. Okay. And I have to say that, I like doing the Sabian symbol. I also like doing the Chandra symbols, but you cannot make this stuff up energy. The Chandra symbol for the same degree, 30 Leo, I'm actually going to go into his site to make sure I'm reading that out wrong, it's actually a woman sprinkling rose water in the four corners of a room. Rather than seeing yourself as limited, you relate to the whole of existence and have a great desire to bring light to all that is around you. You have a great ability for regenerating and transmuting situations that have fallen prey to darkness and stagnation. You have a tremendous persistence that will keep projecting light until the darkness is finally dispersed. Your potent hope can have a wonderfully uplifting effect on people. You are also willing to package what you put forth in a form that people will understand, relate to, and not feel threatened by. The gemstones of the poetess in the Omega symbol, which is a poetess wearing rings with large gemstones in them, signify the high spiritual truths whose essence you are willing to share in a form that poetically touches the soul. Just all let that sit with you when we look at where all the rest I've said that's coming to light, all those kind of things. This is just unbelievable, right? You know, and it's a Star of David, and it's everything's coming to light. We've also got that asteroid there, which is about regeneration. We are being given an amazing opportunity to regenerate our own lives and the world. All right. So we're still on September the 19th. By the way, I love that this occultation is also happening on a Venus day, Freya's day, Friday. And I love that it's in the sign of Leo, that Venus is kind of, she loves being in Leo. It's kind of this energy of exaltation. I could go on. And it's at that last minute. Change. Because, oh, I've shared that chart again. Okay, I'm going back to my sheet, I hope. Yeah, here we go. So back to this. So right after this occultation, third eclipse, oh, so powerful. Well, it's going to reveal more hidden things as well, but it's also at the endings, okay? The moon at 8:23 a.m. Eastern will enter Virgo for a couple of days. The new moon eclipse is literally in Virgo, also at the end degree, the anaretic degree. But then also, so the occultation is at 8:21 a.m. Eastern exactly. The moon moves into Virgo at 8:23 a.m. and Venus moves into Virgo at 8:39 a.m. That is while Venus is still occulted, to be quite honest. This is the exact point, 29:59. The moon is still occulting Venus as both slip into the sign of the witch, the priestess, and they then meet fixed star Regulus, which I've talked about before. This is just amazing. And as the moon moves into Virgo, the moon will square off to Uranus all on the Friday. The moon will sextile Haumea, and the moon will sextile Hygeia. So the moon will be in the midpoint of these two. More health, more healing, more regeneration, more rebirth. Oh my God, this is just, guys, we are in amazing times. You have to find it exciting. Look to the possibilities. Please, please, please do not kind of, just look at the crap that's happening out there. Some of that's beyond our control at this point. Collectively, we kind of, have to each step up and speak out at least, or whatever. We do our part, but this is a big collective regeneration moment. Last day of the week. Now you can see that the moon is in Virgo, and the Venus is there conjunct Regulus. Let me add it. Fixed star Regulus. This is just Regulus, the royal star, which was named Regulus while it was in Leo, by the way. Oh, I was adding it on my other software. Never mind. It's there. Believe me, it's there. And it is actually at exactly 0 degrees 10 minutes. So early on the morning, they both hit that Regulus, or late on Friday. Regulus moved into the sign of Virgo at the end of 2011 after 2,160 years in Leo. the sign of royalty, the sign of the king, the sign of all that power over the emperor, the empress, all of that kind of thing. Yes, there are both energies in Leo, but now we're entering into this Virgo time in so many ways, right as the moon is occulting Venus, revealing these hidden things, both set into the sign of the priestess, the witch, meaningful work in the world, all of those kind of things, as we're having the very next day, the 21st, which will be more on next week's eclipse, but I'll do next week's report, as we're having a new moon eclipse at the very last degree of Virgo. We had a new moon at the 0 Virgo. We had the lunar eclipse at 15 Pisces with the sun at 15 Virgo. We've had Mercury under the beams combust the sun for the whole journey through Virgo. We are being asked to release what that Virgo energy means and step into higher Virgo energy, which is the witch, the humble, the chop wood, carry water, the doing meaningful right work in the world. I'm not talking about scarcity consciousness, because that too is kind of the shadow Virgo energy. But, of realizing that it's interconnected, there's enough for everybody, but we are all both spiritual beings in a human suit, Virgo, very human, whole unto ourselves, but all little sacred pieces bouncing off each other and not working apart from the other. Okay, this is amazing to me. But anyway, once the moon enters Virgo, on the 20th, the moon will probably, because we're right in the dark of the moon at this point, we're in the eclipse energy. There's no light in the moon on Saturday, and the moon in Virgo will first trine Pholus, cause and effect, Pandora's box. Things have been coming out. Okay, another step in the way. Then at 11:41 a.m., Venus will actually exactly square off to Uranus. Radical change. Step into creating this rich energy, this meaningful work energy, this more down to earth kind of working with your hands kind of energy, getting your hands dirty, being prepared to, but definitely not thinking that you lord it over anybody else in the world, and not letting anybody else lord over you. Then later that day, Mercury will square Hygeia. I do want to point out, as Mercury travels through Leo and makes its aspects, Mercury is actually at what's called aphelion at the end of the day, on the 20th as well. Mercury is traveling behind the sun from our perspective at this point, and on the last day of this week, Mercury is still only 6 degrees away from the sun, or at least at the start of that day, and so still not visible, still being purified, still way further away from Earth. So we're still having some purification of old beliefs and ideas as this happens. It's not all changed yet. Okay, so Mercury is officially at aphelion on that day, and then we move to the through the rest of the day. The moon will conjunct the south node. It's a south node eclipse coming down the drain. By the way, that's down the drain, letting old feelings go, releasing, shedding, letting these old things go down that south node drain. Those old filing systems in your head, those old voices. Then Venus will sextile Haumea, all these things happening over and over. But then a very last major lunar aspect is that the moon will, after circling the drain of the south node, will oppose Nessus, abuses of power. This is just, and then we've got the very next day, this amazing new moon eclipse. But I think this is an amazing week. Okay, so, please try, and I know it feels awful out there, and I know some people are hurting.
I think the best point thing we can do at the moment is try and support those that are hurting, as well as looking after our own and doing our self-care and being strategic about where we put our energy. And what is your part in the healing? Is it just speaking out on YouTube, like people like me? Or is it, is it going marching? Is it getting involved in the politics? Is it kind of at least shining a light on what's happening in the world for those that are not aware? There's many, many roles in this potential that we are stepping into. You just, stay out of the idea that, you have, and it's the shadow of Virgo, by the way, because we've got all that energy at the end of Virgo, is servitude, of thinking you're the one that has to save everybody. But that's really savior complex. You have to save yourself first, put your own oxygen mask on first. I've got this poor friend and I feel for her, but she is really in that victim mode. She is like so having a hard time. She wants somebody else to save us. She's like going, but she's trying to save others. She's kind of getting really angry if people don't donate to yet another of her save causes. And she's really trying to do good in the world, which is very good Virgo energy. But when you overgive and don't step back and put your oxygen mask on first, you end up a wreck. And she is a wreck right now, to be quite honest. And I love her, and she is emblematic, though, of what we can be if we don't work with these energies. So this is the sun for the week. I am joy. The sun is our center. And I'm going to read you a quote from one of my favorite little books by Robert A. Johnson, who was a Jungian psychologist. The book is called Ecstasy: Understanding the Psychology of Joy. To worship Dionysus is to worship the life force. Ecstasy was once considered a divine gift. But this is we are illuminated. And it is a symbol of the ego, but the healthy ego. And the book says this is the masculine principle, but the sun was often considered feminine in many cultures. Can we let go of this binary kind of energy for the planets? I think the sun is just this symbol of this conscious self and how we relate to others in many ways. This is our center, this is our and what we shine out in the world. So there's the sun. And then we got the star. Can you believe it? So the sun in this deck was Dionysus. And this is Asterion, who, long story, but interestingly, our asteroid Ariadne, the story of Ariadne, Asterion, her brother, who was locked in a labyrinth, and Dionysus. It was a myth we looked at in my Venus retrograde class, but it's an interesting story. You can go and read it. But this is the star. Asterion became a star after after death. Okay. So I am going to read you a couple of quotes again, but this is I am brilliant. So again, you are being asked to shine from the outside in. So Marianne Williamson, her famous quote, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Most people are afraid of the dark. I think individually and collectively, we are afraid of our light. What would happen if we all shone really brightly in the world from our core? Anyway, we ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? And I'll leave it at that. And then the last card for the week. The last of the tarot, because then I did pull a card from the Witch Oracle. Four of Blades. This is I am withdrawal. This is just a call. In this last week of eclipse season, as we head into this new moon eclipse, is to withdraw. from a lot of the hubbub, a lot of all the shoulds, a lot of thinking, if you don't do something now, what will happen? But honestly, the changes we are going through collectively and personally are so huge that you need this withdrawal. I'm going to read you another quote from another of my favorites, Maya Angelou. Every person needs to take one day away, a day in which one consciously separates the past from the future. Jobs, family, employers, and friends can exist one day without any of us, and if our egos permit us to confess, they could exist eternally in our absence. Each person deserves a day away in which no problems are confronted, no solutions searched for. Each of us needs to withdraw from the cares which will not withdraw from us. And Banksy also said, if you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit. So if you need to, take a digital withdrawal. If you need to, take a day off work. If you need to, withdraw in some way. Recharge, regenerate, rest. Overall, it's just an amazing week of both shedding, coming to this crossroads and starting to realize what we're creating from the inside out. If I could sum it up in any way, that's the best way, and it's so powerful. So please work with it. Maybe keep the Substack version if you prefer to have it in the written. Listen to all of this to get the whole vibe of this amazing week, to see the cards, and then go and get the Substack version, which is free, the written version, so you've got the day by day. So anyway, I'm going to read you last of all the Selkie. And it's kind of weird that this card came up because we have this Pisces North Node. And we are moving towards more of that. So the Selkie, page 41. I'll show you the card in a second. The Selkie. In the Witch Oracle deck. You see it, there's a seal and a woman, but let me read you this. Legend tells of the Selkie, a shape-shifting woman seal often seen off the coast of northern Scotland, who can shed her skin by moonlight and dance upon the shores. Fishermen were known to catch the seal-made skin in order to keep her pinned to the land, captured as bride, preventing her return to her true skin and soul home. To reclaim your soul skin in the current legend you're living, you must let go of the good girl pelt you were raised to wear. Oh my God, that hit home. This means getting comfortable with letting people have their own ideas about who you are, so that you can develop the freedom to be what is most natural to you. Toss off all that no longer fits you and dive deep into the places where your soul feels most at home. Let go of old demands you put yourself under to be the good girl, the good friend, the good daughter, the good wife, the good mother, the good whatever. Shed the pelt of expectation, demand, and approval, including your own. The witch you are becoming will cost you relationships, spaces, comfort, security, and convenience. Choose her over everything. And that applies to everybody. It's not just women, but it's that energy within us. All right. Love you. What a week. And I will get this uploaded. Bye.